Hello and welcome to another edition of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill, and I want to start off this week with talking about Jerry Jones and Roger Goodell and Jerry's attempts to, in my opinion, undermine the current structure of the committee structure in the NFL, which has been the ways that NFL owners have made decisions. And they made decisions based upon committees having an expertise and them being the day-to-day with the most level of involvement, the most understanding of it all. And Jerry just seems to want to have everybody vote on everything so that he gets to vote on everything, I guess is the way I would put it. And I'm not so sure how I feel about that. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think, I think that he's taken this Ezekiel Elliott thing and made the whole thing personal. And I think he's lost credibility as well as Goodell losing credibility. I think it's been bad for the NFL on a number of fronts. And I think it's dangerous to have somebody like Jerry Jones involved in something right now like this, where he's got a raw nerve and he's going to make an emotional reaction because he doesn't like anything.
Yeah.
And I've never been fond of the whole concept of the commissioner working for the owners. I know that's who pays them, and I know that's how it has evolved. But I think I go back to the time when Bowie Kuhn was there and Pete Rozelle was there, and David Stern worked for the owners, but he always did what was in the best interest of the game, whether the owners want him to do it or not. And I think a commissioner has to be tough. It has to do the things he or she thinks is right for the game. And if he gets fired, he gets fired. And I remember St. Vincent taking that stand and getting fired. But the best interest of the game has to be the most important consideration, not whose side you're on. And you have to work to get things at a consensus, not just a consensus on one side and then you go after the other side. So I've got a problem with it. And then years ago, there was a book by a guy named Harris called The Rise and Decline of the NFL. And it talked about a concept called League Think. And League Think was laid out as almost a Three Musketeers approach, all for one and one for all. And it's really why there is an NFL in Green Bay and other places that aren't major markets or aren't as major markets. And it just showed that the NFL was able to put things aside to be able to build the game, and that's what they did. And now it seems like they're trying to rip down the game. They're not trying to. They're inadvertently ripping down the game by ignoring the ideas and concepts that got them there in the first place. So I don't think it's all about one for all for one anymore. I think it's all about me. And that's a real warning sign for me about the future of the NFL.
Which already has a lot of warning signs as is.
Yeah, really. It just seems there's parity, but there's not excitement.
No.
And the funny thing, Jason, I was thinking about, these touchdown celebrations are getting more and more elaborate every week as somebody tries to outdo each other.
Mm-hmm.
I decided what I want for Christmas.
What's that?
I want somebody to sign Terrell Owens to a one-day contract and let him do a celebration. Because he's the guy that started all this in the first place, and then they legislated all that out. And now that they're all doing that kind of celebration again, I think they ought to bring back T.O.
Yeah, some of those celebrations are getting a little played out, I think.
They're out of hand. They're too contrived.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. They feel very and even my Steelers, who have done some fun ones, I feel are getting a little bit, I don't know, it doesn't feel fun. It feels like
I thought Juju with the bicycle chain was funny.
Yeah. I think the hide and seek, the tag, the bowling,
duck,
it's
duck goose,
yeah,
bowling, which we've seen bowling before.
Right.
But all part of the new NFL, the friendlier NFL.
Now, on that front, do you think, just from a PR standpoint, that they would, if they were able, I don't know if they can let Roger, I don't know what skeletons he has in his closet that he knows about, or all those other things, where the bodies are buried, and all those things, but don't you think it would look good if the NFL moved on from Roger Goodell? Just from a PR standpoint, from public perception?
They had a good alternative. Here's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid if the NFL moves on from Roger Goodell, they're going to move on to one of their own, like thought he was the guy that was in the best interest of the game. He was in the best interest of the owners, but yet he didn't really do much. I'm very big on Manfred now. I think he's done a lot of things. I mean, it depends on what your alternative is. I mean, until you have an alternative or somebody that you want to have run this thing, I think, it's dangerous to just make a change to make a change.
Right, but Goodell seems to screw. I mean, for whatever he does good for the league.
It seems like there's too much animosity. Now there's animosity on both sides.
Right.
There's player animosity and there's owner animosity. And when you get that, that's a bad sign when you get on both sides. So, and again, having worked for David Stern, I know there was times when the players didn't like him, but they always respected him.
Right.
And I don't think that's the case here with Goodell.
Well, he's been inconsistent in his discipline. He's been sloppy. He's been, he's had, one ruling one way, one ruling another way. Like, he does seem to be in the owner's pockets. Like, he's been very wishy-washy, very reactionary.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not, I don't know. I've been disappointed. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
I've been much more impressed with Rob Manfred and where he's trying to take baseball. The one sport that really needed a lot of work. And I think there's a guy that's come in and done some things that's really impressed me. So we'll have to see.
And I guess transitioning from that sort of NFL to current NFL, I think along with the penalties, or not penalties, the celebrations, I think part of what hasn't worked for me is that there's been just really bad football this year.
Yeah.
Like, I know the Eagles have looked outstanding, and the Vikings have been fun, but I mean, I think when you look at, in the AFC, like, the Steelers have barely beaten they're tied for the best record. They barely beat the Browns, the Colts, the Packers. They lost to the Bears.
And Jacksonville's proved to be a decent team.
Not
a great team, but a decent team.
Right, but they have the Achilles heel. They have Blake Bortles, who should not be a quarterback in the NFL. And I think you look along, I mean, even he never got his job in any of the months, obviously. But, even if Kaepernick was there, it's not like there's not still a dearth of talent at the quarterback position.
No, and I can't believe I lost out on my prediction Kaepernick would be back in the league. In fact, it's been really quiet on the Kaepernick front for a couple weeks now.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like once he filed that lawsuit, that was pretty much the end of any chance he had.
Well, in any discussion, because now nobody wants to talk because there's going to be a lawsuit. So.
Right. But I mean, you look around the league.
It's not been a great NFL season, and I mean, the ratings were down on the Thanksgiving Day games. The Sunday night games, for the most part, had been bad till last night, and last night was a good game. It was a close game. It was an exciting game. It was an unexpected game. Maybe that's what makes it more exciting when it's unexpected. Yeah.
And obviously, as a Steeler fan, I want to think, well, maybe, just like with Aaron Rodgers, like maybe Brent Huntley, in his 3 years in that program, is slowly developing into a good quarterback. And he's getting his sea legs over the last few weeks. But
I don't know. You go from a shutout to 4 touchdowns. I got to attribute some of that to the other way.
Yeah. Well, when they
were big chunk plays.
Yeah. But I mean, you look around the league. I mean, obviously the Patriots are presumably still the Patriots, but they've been a little sloppy this year.
And I'm excited about Mike Tomlin pointing to that game and saying it's the first of 2 games, and the winner of those 2 games is going to be in the Super Bowl. I think I like coaches calling that out, and I think their players like him calling it out.
Well, especially when you look around the records of everybody else in that league. Like, the Chiefs were supposedly the 3rd team in that trifecta, and they're definitely not anymore.
No, they're not. It's hard to say who the 3rd team would be.
Right. I mean, it's a Jacksonville, Tennessee, San Diego Chargers, or LA Chargers, sorry, at this point.
Hey, you can have 2 teams from LA that nobody goes to see, both in the playoffs.
Well, I think the Rams are definitely in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And the Chargers
definitely not. It'd be a good game, and the Chargers are playing well right now, so we'll see.
But the Chargers are the Chargers. They have a way of shooting themselves in the foot every single year somehow. They're just...
Let's talk about college football.
Okay.
I love the Auburn-Alabama game.
Because of the chaos it created?
No, I liked it because we talk all year about how great Alabama is, and yet every time we get to Alabama plays a team with a quarterback that's a multi-purpose threat, they have trouble. They have trouble with somebody can throw the ball down the field and evade the rush.
Yeah.
And the quarterback's only a freshman. He looked outstanding for Auburn. I was very impressed. And at the same time, their defense. I mean, they're definitely one of the best 4 teams in the country, even though they have 2 losses. They just didn't gel at the right time, but they sure gelled right now. So I'll be curious. I think they'll probably dismantle Georgia again. I think Ohio State can beat Wisconsin. I mean, you could have a real mess here. And can you imagine if Alabama gets in and they're the 3rd place team in the SEC? Everybody will be screaming. But the reason I'm kind of pushing for that is I think now that might lend to the argument that we need to have a 6-team or an 8-team playoff. So I'm like, you know how you love your chaos? I'm right in your camp this year. I'm rooting for the chaos because I want the playoffs expanded. I'd argue UCF should get in. If there was 8 teams, UCF should get in. That was one of the best football games I've seen in 5 years. The UCF-USF game. It was a tremendous game.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were evaluating it on this season and not on preseason and, legacies of the programs, I think UCF would be one of the best 4 teams in the country right now.
Yeah. If you went to an 8-team playoff, you could guarantee all 5 conference winners would get in, which would shut up that debate, right?
Yeah.
And then you pick the best non-power 5, that gives you 6, and then you have 2 wild cards to give you 8.
No, it makes sense. I just, you look at it and it just...
Yeah, so, but it's going to have to... Somebody's going to be so outraged about who's in the playoff this year and who's not in, that maybe that'll help move it in that direction. We'll have to see. But I just loved, Quentin Flowers, except for his gesture at the end of his last touchdown run, showed me he's one of the best players in all of college football, yet he doesn't even get a mention for the Heisman Trophy. Here's a guy who threw for 500 yards and ran for another 100. He was 600 yards of total offense. 600 yards. And he played against an undefeated team, a top 20 team.
Yeah, that gesture is a very popular gesture amongst players this year.
Yeah, that gesture was... maybe it's the thing now. Baker Mayfield, now him, I don't know. Keep your hands away from your Johnson, I guess. That should be a rule.
I thought it was for a while, but it's kind of gone out the window.
Yeah.
But, Miami lost.
It was a good game. I was excited. I liked that game, the Auburn game. I watched Pitt beat Miami. That was a fun game, exciting game. Another freshman quarterback comes in and leads a win.
And causes more chaos.
There were some fun games this weekend.
Because Miami was in up until this last week.
And they can still get in just by beating Clemson.
Yeah.
The ACC is going to have one of the spots.
And it'll just be interesting to see how many the SEC has.
I feel confident that if I was picking the 4 right now, I'd say it's going to be Clemson, Oklahoma, Auburn, and if Wisconsin wins, Wisconsin.
So Alabama not in.
Alabama not in.
But if Georgia knocks off Auburn,
then Auburn's out. Then you probably got to argue Georgia's in.
Right.
Because they'd have 1 loss and they would have beaten Auburn, who beat Alabama. So.
Yeah, there's...
I don't know, Jason. Just crazy.
Yeah. There's going to be some debates
What do you think about the NBA this week?
Well, as a Oklahoma City sympathizer or supporter, I don't know what you call it, but I don't know what's wrong with that team.
I feel rumblings in the force there's going to be a coaching change. I think that's going to be one of the first coaching changes made this year. There's just too much money invested in that team. They are way over the salary cap. It's going to cost them a lot of money to have that team on the court this year. And thank God it's Oklahoma City, because people go, and they still go, and they're still going to buy tickets. But if it was another market, people would be screaming. And you also don't have the tough press and columnists and beat writers and personalities that you have in other markets. So they get a much longer pass than you would anywhere else. But I just happen to think that he's going to go. Now, who they're going to get to replace him, I don't know. But there'd be a lot of people lined up to want to coach that team.
And again, with that team, because I've watched them a few times, and it looks like they get out to big leads, and they just have trouble closing out games, which...
I watched them play Golden State. They were ridiculous in that game. They were absolutely ridiculous. They looked like the best team in the world. And then they lose to Detroit. Go figure.
Yeah. And again, you got to look somewhere. Your players are your players. Russ is your do or die. He's there forever. You're trying to convince Paul George to stay. Probably not Carmelo. So.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I really like that team. It's my favorite team. I like the Timberwolves this year. I like the Sixers.
The
I mean,
Sixers
that's
are,
one thing the NBA has going for it is a lot of teams people like and a lot of exciting players to watch right now.
and I think the one
The
thing
NBA is
that,
in a really good spot right now.
I mean, you look at Ben Simmons and Embiid on the Sixers; those are two super exciting. Like Ben
Yeah,
Simmons
those
is,
are two guys you want to see play.
yeah.
And Embiid had a ridiculous game last week.
Ben Simmons has been
Yeah.
ridiculous all year,
Ben Simmons is amazing.
and like they said, he hasn't even
And
learned
he
to shoot
technically
yet.
be Rookie of the Year, right? Because he really didn't play last year.
No, he's the front runner for Rookie of the Year right now.
Yeah. So, interesting.
Yeah.
I've been enjoying that. I guess on the baseball front, I want to see where Stanton ends up.
Well, I
I
think
want to see where Stanton ends up, and I want to see where this Japanese two-way player ends up. And I believe that's going to be in the American League because he wants to be a DH when he's not pitching. He's like a Babe Ruth type.
yeah, he's the Japanese Babe Ruth.
Yeah, and I'd love to see him play. I'd love to see him end up at the Angels to go with Mike Trout, and then maybe they start playing some earlier games so I could watch him on TV.
It'd be interesting to see how his.
I could see Stanton as a Yankee or as a Red Sox. I mean, you know, those two players. There's only 4 or 5 teams that could afford those players.
Well, the Japanese guy when he comes in, he's on he's going to be taking less money those first couple years. I saw something about that. I wish I had done more research to actually fill it out, but I know
But they've got to pay a ridiculous amount to get him.
It's true, yeah.
And that's what I mean. It's almost like an EPL thing. You know, it's a big pay. It's a big check. It's got to be written to get his rights.
And it'll be interesting to see if he can actually pitch in the majors because while hitters have come over and been, you know, from obviously Ichiro on, have been fairly successful. The pitchers outside of Yu Darvish.
I've seen this guy. I've seen some clips and everything. He looks ridiculous. I think this guy could be the real deal. He could be the pitching, batting equivalent. Ichiro came over and was a stud. Look how old he was. This kid's a young guy. This guy could come over and have a fantastic career.
Well, I'd love to see it.
Yeah. Hey, I didn't check it out, but I saw a blip on my phone that Gong got released from his Dominican team.
He did.
Any reason?
He was playing poorly and leading the team in errors.
Wow.
Yeah.
So maybe his 1 year with the Pirates was a flash in the pan.
I just think this whole. I mean, I think it's probably taken a toll on him physically, psychologically. Like, you know, he wasn't.
Probably. I can't disagree with that.
And he was out of baseball for a while. And baseball is definitely a game of rhythm, and you know.
Oh yeah.
Like he's got too much talent. I think if he gets steady work, I just think that that situation wasn't a good situation for him for whatever reason. But I know he was batting like 171 and leading the team in errors in the field. And maybe I think there was rumblings too about personality, but I think people were just looking for something. So
wow, it's a bummer.
it goes quickly.
Yeah.
When it goes.
Well, I got my food moment.
All right.
I was in Newport Beach for the week of Thanksgiving, and I went to the original Mama D's not once, not twice, but 3 times.
Wow.
And had 3 different meals, and everyone was outstanding. Although my favorite is the chicken and sausage Capri,
Which is
like pasta with Roma tomatoes, sauce, Fra Diavolo sauce, chicken and sausage. It's outstanding. And fresh mozzarella. It's outstanding.
I see.
Then I had lasagna the 2 nights later, and then the last night I had angel hair and meatballs, just something simple, and it was outstanding.
Nice.
And then one day I went to Sprinkles for dessert, which Sprinkles is my very favorite ice cream. So a malted chocolate with malted milk balls in it. So that's my food moment. And if you're ever in Newport Beach, go to the original Mama D's. It's outstanding.
Well, my food moment is actually. What's that?
It's only open 4.5 hours a day.
Oh wow.
I take it back. It's open 5.5 hours a day. It's open from 4 to 8:30 every day, and 4 to 9:30 on weekends. That's
Nice.
it. And it's always full.
Mm-hmm. Well, my food moment is actually a TV moment.
Okay.
I typically do not like any sort of reality show contest sort of things, but the one exception to that is the Great British Baking Show, which
Ooh, I've never seen that.
it looks like they actually cast people based on their baking ability. Because you have, on this particular season, there were 4 people in their 70s. And they were all a delight.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. And, you get to see what they're making, and they explain why they're making it. So it's more of an instructional show than even a contest. But to even illustrate that point further, when one contestant is done with their presentation, if they finish early, they go and help the other contestants finish. And, they hug and they cry when somebody is let go. Like, it's the least competitive show, but they also make some just amazing food on the show. And, it's delightful. It's very emotional. Like, it's seeing nice people bake things, and it's pretty wonderful. And you learn about different baking techniques and cooking techniques, which is fun too.
Now, a future food moment. I ordered meatball deep dish pizzas from Bartolini's in Chicago for when you and Dan are here at Christmas time.
Okay. Amazing.
So we'll talk about it on that show after we have that. But it's amazing.
Yes.
And then I want to mention something I'm looking forward to, The Alienist on, I think it's TBS. I don't know what network. It's either TBS or TNT, or it could be even WGN. I don't know. It's on one of those 3.
Okay.
The Alienist, the Caleb Carr novel brought to life. And it looks really, really good. I'm excited about it. So we'll have to see.
Okay. And I guess I'll throw out, I wasn't even planning on this, but I do have a looking forward to. And that's Search Party Season 2, which is on TBS. If you haven't seen Search Party, you should go watch it. It's only 10 episodes. I believe they're only a half hour long.
What are they searching for?
It's a good question. Initially, they're searching for their friend from college, but it's a look at sort of millennial on some level, but it's done with it's just really well done. And it's not like watching
Inspired by The Hangover?
No, not at all. And it's not like,
okay, good.
Like when you watch The Big Bang Theory, it's like the most basic level of nerd joke that it's almost not even a nerd joke. Like, this isn't making fun of millennials on like that, Jay Leno talk show kind of a way. It's a really solid, funny show that really it's just really well done.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to the second season because they left it they finished the first season but left a good opening for a second season. I know the critics loved it for whatever that's worth.
Okay.
It's part of TBS's new movement.
Jason, I'm halfway tempted to go and see this latest Star Wars movie. Only because I've never seen a Star Wars movie since the original first 3.
Okay.
And I was thinking I might go just to see how different it looks like in, 30 plus years later, 40 plus years later.
Well, I've seen the last 2. The first one, I don't even consider it a movie. It was just a member berries. It was like a remix of stuff you remember. It was almost the first movie all over again. And I guess unlike Star Wars people, I like the second one, which was kind of darker, the Rogue One that was a standalone. But, I guess it was the least Star Wars movie, so I don't know what that says.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking about it. I don't know if I'm going to follow through or not.
But visually, it is very cool.
Okay.
This was actually show number 40. So for all of you that have continued to stay with us, thank you so much for your support and your listens. And, please continue to tell your friends. Please rate us on iTunes. I know a lot of you listen that haven't rated us on iTunes, and it really doesn't take very long, so please do that. And then keep subscribing. And, if you can afford and you like what you hear, like Patreon would really help us take the show to the next level. So those sorts of things.
Absolutely. And thanks for your support. 40 shows, and it went fast, and we've always had a good time every time we do a show.
And we promise that December might be a little different schedule as far as things go with everything else, but I think we'll be able to have I'm hoping to have other members of the Sutton family on our podcast over the holidays.
That'd be fun. I'd like to do that as well.
Yeah. So until next week, I'm Jason. And
I'm Bill, and we're signing off. I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. Talk to you soon.